In this series of lessons, we're going to be looking at methods for generating mats. Rather than looking at the built-in keyers like IBK, Keylight, Primat, and Ultimat, we're going to be building keyers from scratch. I feel this is an important skill for people to learn because it helps demystify the internals of the commercial keyers, and it also gives you an expanded tool set for generating mats in situations when the commercial keyers fail, which they sometimes do. So let's get right into it. The first type of keyer or mat that we're going to explore is a channel or luma keyer. So we have this little image of a bunny suit guy, and if we look at his channels, we're looking at all the channels here. Red, here's the red channel, green, and blue. You can see that the blue channel actually looks like it could be perhaps manipulated into something like a mat. We can also preview the overall luminance of the image by hitting Y in the viewer. So this is just the luminance. So if we compare luminance to the blue channel, let's see. It looks like the blue channel is actually better than the overall brightness of this image if we want to create a mat. Now, rather than using the keyer node, which we will explore in another video, let's do this completely from scratch. We're going to use built-in primitive nodes to create our key. So in this case, I think I'm going to use a color lookup to adjust the blue channel until it appears to look like a mat. Now we could do this one of two ways. We could use the master slider here, or we could just adjust the blue channel to do it. Let's go ahead and just use the master curve. So I'm going to adjust this to look more like a mat. Easiest way is to lasso both points on the curve and just sort of start increasing the contrast by dragging one box. Now if it feels like it's getting a little out of control, like you don't have enough space here, you can always reframe this interface by hitting the F key with the points selected that you want to frame into the full interface here. So I'm going to grow this a little bit and then hit F to fill the interface with the points that I want to manipulate. So let's keep going. I'm basically just increasing the contrast of the white. And let's give it like a soft roll-off here. So this soft roll-off will keep it from going super luminous in areas that I've pushed up here. And maybe I can even soft clip the blacks a little bit to get rid of some of these little noisy things here. There we go. And this is something that the channel keyer node really can't do. It doesn't have this soft clipping ability. I'm going to scoot up the black point just a bit to trim off these areas here. There we go. And maybe I'll turn up the gain just a little bit more, increase the brightness just a little more to capture more of these details. There we go. We have something that looks like a key. Now, we've still got a few little noisy areas here. Depending on how we want to do things, we may not have to worry about those. We can create a separate mat that we can use to fill these in. Really, our highest priority should be to try to create something that captures the profile of the image and maintains some of the edge quality, the anti-aliasing quality. So now I'm going to actually back off on my overall solution here just a little bit to try to maintain a little bit more of this detail. And then what we'll do is we'll duplicate this curve node, color lookup. This will be our beauty or our higher quality key, and then we'll create one to fill these details in the inside. We'll just call this core so that we know which is going to be which. So I'm going to manipulate the curves on my core mat to be more aggressive. To really, my goal with the core mat is to totally fill in this core the best I can. And it looks like I'm having to make it very hard, very crunchy, and even still I can't get rid of some of these little speckles, but we'll touch those up in a second here. There we go. But I did get most of it. I got a pretty solid core mat. So let's manipulate this a little further. At this point, I'm going to shuffle this out of the blue channel into the alpha channel. So this is the shuffle node. And the way it works is it takes this input channel, red, green, blue, or alpha, and then whatever you check here, it will send it to this one. So easiest way to read it really is to look at the output. If I want something to go to red, I check it off here. If I want something to go to green, I check it here. And you'll notice that right now it's set up to send red to red, green to green, blue to blue. We want to send blue to alpha because we built our little key in the blue channel, but we still don't have it in the alpha channel. So I'll do this for both. Copy that over. And let's keep touching up our inner mat, our core mat here. It's still got a few of these speckles, and it's also got a bunch of junky stuff that was in the rig. So let's start with that junky stuff first. I'm going to create a GMAT using the Roto node. I'm hitting O. And I'm going to just start laying down points to cut off all of this junk that I really don't want. And since this is a GMAT, we can be a little bit more lazy about the quality of it. We're really just trying to get rid of some of this noise and some of this rigging that's outside. Those little strings were actually on the doll, so we don't want to lose those. I think this might have actually been a string on him. Let's well, let's cut it off. We can always fix that later. So let's view it here, and we'll view the alpha channel. Now you'll notice that by default, the Roto node has written into the alpha channel, and it's written a solid alpha over the area inside the shape. But the meaning of this shape can be reversed. So what I will do is I will do inverted here, and it will now draw outside of the shape of the Roto. Now, not only can it draw outside the shape of the Roto, as we've seen, we can make it draw any color we like. So let's take the opportunity here to have it draw black outside. So now I've used the Roto shape to create a black GMAT that cuts off all of the stuff outside of this. That's pretty good. It's getting a little bit more tidy. Let's clean up some of these little speckles. Now, as you may remember, the median filter can be used to find individual pixels like this and filter them out, and that's a reasonable strategy. We could use the median node here. Let's try that. And I'm going to set the median node to only process the alpha because it's kind of slow in Nuke, and so there's no reason to have it process all the RGB channels. And in this case, we're working on the alpha anyway, not the RGB. Also, you can reduce the radius to the minimum amount necessary to get the job done that you're trying to do. So this is a strategy we can use to kill these individual noisy pixels. But as you can see, the median filter is actually kind of slow. So rather than using a median filter, which would be, in Nuke would be one of my last choices since it's so slow, let's try something else. I'm going to use an erode dilate filter, just in fast mode. We'll set this to alpha channel, and we'll view it here. What I'm going to do, let's tackle these white speckles that are outside first. I'm going to erode it in so that those white speckles collapse in on themselves. Bang. Just 1 pixel is enough in that case because they're only 1 pixel big. It seems like we don't have any 2 pixel large ones. But you'll see what happened here is that the black pixels have gotten bigger, but that's not a problem. We can take this and we can go the other way, which will put it right back to where it was, and the black pixels were already gone. So if we go maybe one more, a couple more, then we've then killed most of them. Let's see, it looks like we have to go to 4. So we've dilate eroded one way and then the other, and that has eaten up all the pixels. Now, part of the problem there is we've also effectively grown our alpha channel or our mat, which is no good. So it looks like we need to shrink it down yet again one more time. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to shrink it down. Let's start with the exact same amount that we grew it. So now we have something that is roughly the same size, a little more blobby because it will have lost some of the detail, but has lost all of the little stray pixels. Looks like it's shrunk a little too, which may work out for us. So let's just leave it there for now. We have to clean up our beauty mat still, which, if you remember, we focused more on getting all of the quality of the edge to keep it intact than we did on creating a very solid mat. So we have some areas that don't have very good density here. In fact, we may even loosen this up a little bit more, but let's see what we can get away with. This one still needs a little bit of touch-up, but we have this great hard mat that we've created that we could use as our core mat. We might also be able to use this to generate an outside mat that will trim off all of our rigging and junk for us as well. So let's start by trimming off the stuff outside here using our mat. So let's make a little more space to work. We will take this mat and we will put this inside this mat. So I'm going to say that in that. Or I could also use a min. So let's go ahead and use a min first rather than an inside, because we're only really manipulating the mat. So I'm going to say min. I want the minimum of these two. I'm going to reverse my logic. So this is my background. So right now, because this has darker areas inside, it's coming through. The core is coming through. And you'll notice because this is smaller than that, it's also shrinking my beauty mat. It's getting that same bad, poor quality edge that the hard mat had. So I need to grow my mat a little bit here. Now you'll remember we already had one that was a little bit bigger here. So why don't we just tap this one and see how that works? If we go that and then that, it seems to be trimming off all of the outside and making a nice hard outside, but not trimming off the high quality mat. And we have our smaller one that we can now max inside here, and it will fill in the core, hopefully without adjusting the quality of the edge too much. Now it looks like we might need to shrink it just a little bit more because there's still some places where it's poking out and affecting the quality of our high quality mat. We don't want that. So let's go ahead and shrink it a little bit more. I'm tapping down as I watch the viewer to shrink this mat to be a little, ever so slightly smaller than my beauty mat. Now I notice some of the areas where I got that blobby detail here, unfortunately, we're filling in with little webs, so I can't get away with making it too big. So we'll probably have to go in here and adjust this mat to be a little bit more dense in those areas. There. You might have to go in and touch it up a little bit too by hand. But let's try using it first to see before we tune it anymore. Let's try going in and using this mat to see if it's good enough, and then we'll touch it up. So we're going to copy this in to our beauty using a copy node. So I'm hitting K, copy A alpha into B. So if we view the beauty, we see we've got our little guy on a background in a raw state. I'm hitting M to show the matte overlay, and you can see he's got a little alpha channel that roughly matches him. So let's put him over a background. I'm going to use an addmix operation to do this. We may not have actually looked at addmix, so let's talk about this node a little bit while we're here. Addmix is like a matte operation or an unpremultiplied over, or you could compare it to also a key mix with an additional feature. Its additional feature is that you can adjust the incoming mattes for the foreground and the background independently. So as I'm punching that hole to create the, I'm going to hide the matte mode here, to create the hole, remember the way that the over works is the cookie cutter, which is the matte, cuts out the cookie and also cuts the hole in the background. This allows us to adjust the edge quality of that matte coming in. Now this matte's very hard, so let's give it a little bit of a blur before we copy it in. I'm going to blur just the alpha channel by a few pixels. This will allow us to adjust how the matte fits. So I'm essentially adjusting the gamma of, or the gain, if you move this control here, of the matte of the foreground, which will have the effect, here we go, if we push it really far this way, you can see it will darken because it's making a hole that's bigger, or it's cutting out the cookie more loosely here. Or I can have the effect of cutting the cookie a little more tightly with its matte going this way. And if I want, I could also adjust the way that the matte is being applied to the background so it cuts a smaller hole. So this is the addmix, and it's very, very useful when taking mattes that you've created procedurally through any keyer and compositing them, because it gives you a lot of control over the way the two mattes fit together. So this is a fantastic node to have in your arsenal. So this is the essence of a channel keyer, or building a matte from one of the red, green, or blue channels. And it's also applicable to luminance keying. If you wanted to build a matte using the luminance of the image, you would simply use a saturation node and remove the saturation from the image before running it through your color lookups